From its spring pond headwaters throughout its 14-mile course to its confluence with the Fox River, the Mukwonago River is the highest quality waterway in southeast Wisconsin. Until recently, this river has been known and appreciated, for the most part, only by the people who live nearby, those that use its waters for swimming, fishing, or canoeing. In that respect, the Mukwonago is similar to many lakes and streams in Wisconsin. But the Mukwonago River has caught the attention of a number of scientists, educators, and professionals in environmental fields, and for good reason. The state of Wisconsin classifies this stream as an exceptional resource watercourse. This classification reflects the importance of the river to Wisconsin, particularly to the southeast region, where this unique resource is without compare. The Nature Conservancy, a conservation organization with projects throughout the United States and the world, has deemed the Mukwonago River watershed one of 4 last great places in Wisconsin. Due to the high quality and diversity of the river and its wetlands, the Mukwonago River watershed has been chosen as one of 3 focal sites of the Nature Conservancy's Global Wetlands Network. The other 2 sites are South America's Amazon River and the Great Salt Lake Marsh. What makes this river so special? Beneath its crystal clear waters, the stream harbors an astounding array of life. While most 14-mile rivers may contain 15 or 20 species of fish, recent fish surveys have identified as many as 56 species of fish in the Mukwonago River.
The best you would do anywhere else in the state in a comparable distance and a comparable amount of habitat is more like 30, 25. Anything above 20 is considered pretty good for this state. So we're at this site about double the what's considered good anywhere else, and so this is unique. If you look at a whole river system like the Mississippi or the Wisconsin, there'll be as many species or even more, but that's a much bigger area, hundreds of miles of river that we're talking about, and a much bigger river. Where here we're talking about, at most a mile or so, mile or 2 of water with the high diversity in it. So there's nothing comparable to this in this part of the state, or in any part of the state for that matter.
The fish that live in the Mukwonago and its tributaries include a number of threatened or endangered species, including the endangered starhead top minnow, the threatened greater red horse, the endangered pug-nosed shiner, and the spectacular long-ear sunfish, which is also listed as a species threatened with extinction.
It's pretty rare, and this is essentially the best population of that species we have in the state. From here, from the dam at Phantom Lake down to the Fox River, about 2 miles, is sort of their last stronghold in this part of the state. They used to be much more widespread, and there's still some very small populations in some of the other rivers in the area, but nothing comparable to this.
Like your starhead top minnow, which is a federally endangered fish. It's a very small fish, doesn't get much more than, let's say, 4 centimeters long, and as top minnows, they get their name because they kind of swim along the water surface, and they need this very calm water near the sides of the river with lots of vegetation, because what they do is they eat their prey that's floating along the top of the water surface.
The river is also home to a significant diversity of insects, plants, and animals, including some unusual aquatic species such as freshwater sponges. Many of these fish, plants, and insects are dependent upon the river's clean, clear water. For example, one of southeast Wisconsin's last remaining wild rice beds is located in the Mukwonago River. Not only can wild rice be found there, it's found there in abundance. By late summer, it can get so extensive it can make the stream difficult or impossible to navigate by canoe or raft. This aerial footage, taken in October, shows the remnants of the year's growth of wild rice. Numerous reptiles and amphibians can be found in the Mukwonago River. Several species of turtles can be found in or near the stream, including the painted turtle, the map turtle, and the threatened Blandings turtle. The soft-shelled spiny turtle can also be found in the Mukwonago. The Mukwonago River's gravel shoals are home to one of the most significant freshwater mussel or unionid populations in the state. the state endangered rainbow mussel, the state threatened ellipse and slipper shell mussels, and 12 other species, including the spike and the heel splitter, live in the river. The clear, unaltered waters of the Mukwonago River give scientists the opportunity to study many of the interesting aquatic life forms that occur there. These highly permeable soils not only facilitate a plentiful supply of groundwater to recharge the river, they provide a source of drinking water for people in a world where clean drinking water is becoming increasingly scarce. The Mukwonago River is the only intact tributary of the Fox River Basin. Therefore, it is not only important for the long-term existence of threatened and endangered species, it is also important because it may serve as a blueprint to help restore degraded streams. And it can serve as a reservoir of genetic diversity. The Mukwonago River recently served as the donor for reintroduction of the spike mussel at a restoration site in the state of Illinois where it had previously been lost. Many of the fish in the Mukwonago River are either near the northern extent of their range or southern extent of their range. The area is a biological crossroads, in a manner of speaking. This is one reason for the stream's incredible diversity. This large assemblage of fish could only remain and propagate in an area if they found suitable habitat. A wide variety of fish needs a wide variety of habitats. The Mukwonago River excels in having a diverse array of habitats which are used by fish and other types of aquatic life.
The Mukwonago tends to have a fairly stable flow. The springs that come in, not only in areas cool the water, but also what they do is they provide a fairly steady base flow. And that base flow is really important because if a stream gets too dry during parts of the year, it can severely affect species that live in it.
An important part of the stream's habitat is its diverse wetlands.
That's what's phenomenal about this place. It's not one wetland, it's not one lake. It's a series of wetland and aquatic habitat types. So you have this large spatial or habitat diversity. There are tamarack bog remnants, there are fens, there are sedge meadows, there are marshes, there are floating leaved aquatics and emergent vegetation. And then each of those habitat types very likely retains a high proportion of the native plant diversity and animal diversity just because this site is so rare in its low level of disturbance. Much of the wetland loss in Wisconsin is near this region. So Mukwonago stands out as being a remnant or a refuge for wetlands in a region where damage has been very, very high. It's extremely difficult to find a pristine example of a sedge meadow or a fen or a tamarack bog. Mukwonago is unique in that it has these remnants, multiple remnants of biodiversity right in one watershed. We can talk about diversity as something that we enjoy or that is aesthetically pleasing, but the real issue for scientists is what do those species do? What are the ecosystem functions or the services to humankind that they provide? The more species that are present in an ecosystem, the more productive the vegetation will be. So that's the first strong direct link between species richness and ecosystem functioning.
The river has a wide floodplain that includes many intact wetlands. These natural sponges help protect people and property by preventing flooding. Due to its phenomenal variety of life forms and habitats, for the most part currently intact, the Mukwonago River stands alone among smaller streams in Wisconsin. Amazingly, this unique resource is only about 45 minutes from Milwaukee, and it is located in rapidly developing Waukesha County. Thanks to the efforts of many landowners, the area has remained largely unchanged by farming and development since the arrival of the European settlers more than a century and a half ago. These landowners went beyond just appreciating the area's natural beauty. They took deliberate measures to see that it didn't change. A considerable portion of the lands surrounding the headwaters of the river, including the Lulu Lake State Natural Area, is now protected through ownership by the Nature Conservancy and the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. The Mukwonago River watershed is part of the Fox River Basin in southeast Wisconsin and northeast Illinois. Here we see a stark contrast in water clarity where the Mukwonago River on the left flows into the Fox River on the right. The first lake is a natural lake which has extensive intact wetlands. The stream then flows through a series of man-made lakes. After the stream leaves Eagle Spring Lake, it meanders through wooded areas and wide-open marshes with adjacent spring-fed ponds. The river's final section includes numerous gravel shoals before its confluence with the southeast Fox River below the village of Mukwonago. Wildlife which depends upon the stream abounds in these areas.
When you have a stream like the Mukwonago, with its aquatic life intact, with its stream sides well buffered, with existing wetlands running along its course in many, many areas, you have a prize. A living river is an amenity for any community that it runs through. So to have clean water, to have a place to fish and canoe, to have a place to walk and get away from the noise of modern society, that's a rare commodity for any community in the United States today. So the communities that are connected by a stream that flows through it are influenced by its quality. And to have a stream like the Mukwonago is a very rare thing indeed.
The reason the Mukwonago has remained in good shape while a lot of the other systems in this area have declined is just the fact that it remains relatively undeveloped for a system this close to Milwaukee. Now that's certainly changing, and there's a lot more development going on in this watershed, and a lot of that development really threatens a lot of the diversity that we have here.
Unfortunately, the Mukwonago River, like many streams in southeast Wisconsin, currently faces serious threats from development within its basin in rapidly urbanizing Waukesha County. While some activities which degrade streams, such as agricultural activities, can often be corrected, water quality deterioration caused by development is usually permanent. If sediment from construction activities covers the gravel substrates where the mussels live, the habitat will no longer sustain them and they will be lost. While extra care to control erosion is currently being taken in construction projects in the area, this will probably not be enough to preserve the stream for the long term. Few species of aquatic life are able to survive in streams with deteriorating water quality or in streams with rapid and extreme water level fluctuations. Those that are able to survive are usually those that are considered to be less desirable species.
The biggest threat to this area is just urban sprawl, development, construction of housing developments, malls, all those sorts of things, parking lots, new roads. All of those things contribute to increased runoff. They overwhelm the capability of the wetland systems, both to trap water like a sponge and then to filter pollutants out of that water, and so they're going to lead to more flooding, poor water quality, more variable flows, more destruction of habitat. It's a tough trade-off. On the one hand, the less development, the better, and certainly if development has to occur, it should be done in a very careful manner. It should be done limited to certain areas. It should be done with the best available practices to minimize stormwater runoff and to minimize or to maximize, I guess, the quality of that runoff and to avoid pollution going into that system. And so a lot of it just is how this watershed develops in terms of people living here, whether there's going to be just lots of new housing developments, lots of new commercial developments. All of these really threaten the quality of the watershed. So the location of those, the size of those, and the way the development are done are all critical to preserving what we've got here. One of the things that's done when you develop an area is you put in detention basins to trap the stormwater and to alleviate some of the flooding problems that are created by all the impervious surface, all the rooftops and parking lots and other types of areas that don't let the rainwater and the runoff soak in. And certainly detention basins are important and have their place, but in and of themselves they don't solve all of the problems that deal with runoff. They don't completely prevent the flooding, and more importantly, they don't let that water that would normally have soaked into the groundwater continue to soak in. They just hold it for a longer period and meter it out into the water and into the creek. So that water is not going back into the groundwater to replenish the water table, to keep the groundwater flowing going, to keep the wetlands healthy. So in addition to the detention basins that you use to deal with some of the flooding problems, you also need to incorporate infiltration areas, areas where the stormwater can go and then soak into the groundwater, soak and replenish the water table. Because if you don't do that, you're only dealing with half of the problem, the flooding, and you're not dealing with the other side of the equation, which is the reduced water table, the reduced recharging of the groundwater that's so essential to keep the streams flowing and keep the streams healthy during the drought periods, during the periods without rain. One of the issues with urbanization is the effects are very dramatic and very sudden. And so you'll have a system that's being gradually urbanized, gradually suburbanized, and it will be more or less maintaining itself, maybe getting a little bit worse over time, but looking about the same. And then you'll reach a point, a threshold, and suddenly things will get bad very, very quickly, and they'll get very, very bad very, very quickly. And essentially you'll reach a point of no return where in a matter of a few years, the stream will go from being in reasonably good shape to very poor shape, and it will be essentially irretrievable at that point. We don't have any sort of techniques or any sort of ways in which we can take an urbanized stream that's been degraded by urbanization and bring it back to what it was prior to urbanization. And so what we're looking at is a sudden threshold, and we have a pretty good idea what those thresholds are and at what levels of urbanization you reached when these things start to happen. We find a very strong threshold of degradation, a strong threshold of decline at about anywhere from 8 to 12% impervious surface within a watershed. And that's roughly equivalent to about 30% of the watershed being developed. It depends somewhat on the type of development and where the development is in the watershed, but roughly a third of the watershed being developed, and things really decline and really decline dramatically.
Can this treasure that we know as the Mukwonago River, which was shaped thousands of years ago by the great glaciers, be preserved for future generations to learn about and enjoy? There is an increasing awareness on the part of local citizens and community decision makers on just how special this resource is. But is this enough to counter the intense development pressures which the watershed currently faces?
There's a number of things that need to be done in the watershed. I think prime amongst them would be working with local municipal leaders to plan for the future of the watershed. I think right now there are many parts of the watershed that are doing well, that are providing good quality groundwater recharge, that are not impacting water quality or the natural features. And this is a time when local municipal leaders can plan for the future and make sure that the actions they take in the future protect that natural resource.
I think every community should recognize when they have a jewel. And I've been to the Tower of London and seen the crown jewels, and they're locked up in a vault, but they're not locked away from the community. We need to find ways to make this gem accessible